James Gunn did a lengthy interview with our buddies at Rolling Stone, in which he shared a number of nuggets. We're not going to hit every single one of them, but I did think, hey, it'd be worthwhile to settle in, let's say, on a few highlights. So James Gunn, he's 58 years old now. I don't think I would have guessed that. That is actually, that's wild. That's a good decade more than I would have guessed for Dear Sweet Jimmy. But dude is that close to 60. That's actually crazy. So, quote from James Gunn from the article, and then we will discuss. So Rolling Stone asks James, hey, it occurred to us that this particular version of Superman needed a certain version of you, being James Gunn, and a certain version of the audience. Could 2010 James Gunn have made this film? And James Gunn responds with, I don't think the 2020 James Gunn could have made this film. Everybody knows I was offered Superman in 2018. Okay, I didn't know that. They also talked to James about Batman earlier than that, but, says James, I was in the middle of Guardians 3. If they had come to me in 2018 with Batman, I would have said yes, but yeah, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. Okay, so begs the question, all right, what needed to change? And here's where I thought this was particularly fascinating as it pertains to James Gunn. So Rolling Stone says, well, James, what had to change? James says, I needed the right way in, and that required time to think through a few thousand options before I got to the way that I thought worked. But I also think that my life and career has been a gradual softening of the edges. I still like black comedy. I still have edges. I used to like provoking a lot. And today, although I still seem to do it, I don't really like doing that. In my heart, I'm pretty sentimental. I just believe in basic human values. I think Guardians of the Galaxy was a good starter kit for that. So it's the end of the quote. But I thought that was noteworthy, the gradual softening of the edges. Makes me very curious what kind of overall tone we'll get in Superman, because as we know from the Guardians movies, James likes to crack his jokes, right? Likes to poke fun at anything that can be poked fun of. And it would not be difficult to turn this Superman movie into a comedy fest. And shoot, I keep mentioning the Guardians movies, but Creature Commandos was joke after joke after joke. I mean, it felt very, very on brand for James Gunn. What do you think?
I think for him, like if you go back to Guardians of the Galaxy 1, 2, and 3, you do see the increase in the emotional hit. Because Guardians of the Galaxy 3, from an emotional standpoint, is probably the strongest out of the three. Rocket's backstory, by far, one of the most weight to any of his movies. You look at Thor 4, where that backfires, and I think he probably watched that as well and was like, that does not fit the character of Thor. So watching that happen, he's probably looking at Superman and being like, I can't do this with him because I will get murdered out there. And so for him to have that slow, gradual progression into that, so I feel like even the Suicide Squad movie that he directed, if you remember the first one was kind of a mess.
Oh, totally.
And his, yes, it's still the Creature Commandos, it's still the Guardians of the Galaxy, this ragtag team of misfits. And yet there's still the emotional weight to those characters. The Polka Dot Man had terrible mom issues.
Oh my gosh.
And yet when he dies, you're actually a little bummed.
Correct.
I even think of the Peacemaker
his character gets introduced in the very early phases of that movie, and you're like, I can't wait to see this guy die. Can't wait to see Polka Dot Man just get smushed. And he doesn't until later. But you're absolutely right. By the time he does, there's been so much developed in that character that you enjoy having him around. You're bummed when he goes.
But even like Peacemaker, Rick Flag, that fight where Peacemaker ends up winning because Rick Flag's trying to make the right decision at the end of the day. That's tough. That's really tough to watch. So yes, you have all these zaniness, but I think he's figured out how to balance it. Agreed. And I think we'll get that. I think Guy Gardner will be his outlet. If we haven't figured that out already, I really do. I think that's half the reason Nathan Fillion's in this movie as Gardner, because that dude will be your joke cracker 100%.
Yeah.
So I think he just realized, okay, I need to know what character is the right fit for those spots.
Correct.
I still think this Superman's going to be lighthearted. I think he will crack a couple of jokes here and there, but they're not going to be like raunchy. They're not going to be like
off color.
Right. It'll be more like
that's a good point.
Some normal burglar tries to punch him and be like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And he punches him. He's like, see, I told you that was a bad idea. That's the kind of humor that Superman will have, I feel like.
Yeah.
And I think he'll nail it. I really do. I think he's grown as a person, even in that interview.
Yeah.
And because, we've had James Gunn throughout the years. And so good for him. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I think it just makes this new movie coming out stronger, personally.
Yeah. Let me read another quote from James Gunn. I love what you said, and this just reinforces your take here. This is James Gunn speaking about the character of Superman. So James says, but the very good nature of him, as being Superman, is this really strong belief in what's right. Sometimes, perhaps to a fault, is what makes Superman who he is. And that is not Star-Lord or Rocket. That's not a guy who's angry or covering up his emotions. He's pretty pure. And so getting to the place where I could write that character was a journey. In the past, I would have done it through making fun of the character. And I don't think that's what I do here. I'm less afraid now than I used to be. I allow myself to be purely creative more than I used to. I'm less afraid of being goofy or sentimental or boring or straight. So as counterintuitive as it has seemed for James Gunn to be the gatekeeper for DC Comics and the Superman director and writer in particular, when he's saying things like that, and I think part of what has to help him, we've mentioned this before, is the inclusion of all of these other characters around Superman that are really unique, that are odd, that are weird, like Metamorpho, like Mr. Terrific. Like these are more outlandish characters of sorts. I think that helps James scratch that itch, or even, as you mentioned, Guy Gardner. There are Green Lanterns, and then there's Guy Gardner. Like he's his own brand of Green Lantern. He does not fit the particular mold that the core is looking for. But I think that is how James Gunn is able to both, again, scratch his itch of wanting to be a little goofy, a little off color, and he uses those characters to the effect of when you're putting Superman next to those characters, their strongest qualities get revealed, right? And so that's a great way to examine the character of Superman around other heroes and not just the primary. And this is what we've had in so many other, if not every other Superman movie, is you're seeing Superman contrasted with the villain. Well, what if we contrast him with some heroes? Sure, the villain is still there, but put some other heroes around him to help draw out the best qualities of him as well. I think that's really neat.
Agreed?
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. I think for me too, it's so unique. What I appreciate about this is James Gunn in this interview is not like trying to make himself come off as a better person necessarily, because he's being very transparent about how as recently as in 2020, he's like, I would not have been the right fit for this character at that time. And he's not saying that to disparage who he was in 2020, but just to commentate as honestly as he can about how his own life in his own way, he has grown and changed, hopefully for the better, but changed nonetheless. So I think that's pretty stinking sweet. I find one other quote here that I wanted to hit up on. And I enjoy this. I enjoy this so much. What a unique dude, by the way. I think I told you this. I can't believe he's had the same haircut forever.
Yeah, he also did Scooby-Doo 2: Monsters Unleashed, which one of the greatest movies of all time.
You've always been a really big fan of the live-action Scooby-Doo movies.
He actually executive produced that movie, he wrote it. One of the two.
Yeah.
He's very heavily involved in the second one. I watched that movie as a kid all the time. Still love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
some great one-liners in
Yep.
those movies.
Yep.
Highly recommend the live-action Scooby-Doo. And it's a damn shame we only got 2 of those movies. I can't believe we only got 2.
How in this era of everything getting like continued or remade or rebooted, how are we not getting more Scooby-Doo? That's a problem.
I mean, we're getting animated stuff all the time, but
Same.
another live-action movie shot? That is actually surprising.
Yep.
So,
all right, last quote we'll hit on this article. And again, can't recommend reading this article enough. You can find it on rollingstone.com. You can obviously buy a physical copy of the magazine, but super worthwhile interview. All right, James Gunn is talking about how now we're pulling the telescope back a little bit and looking at things from a wider view for DC Studios. So Rolling Stone starts here by more saying than asking. That's one of the biggest rules you've made for DC, that they have to have finished scripts before you produce the movie. Now James Gunn says, yeah, we just killed a project. Everybody wanted to make the movie. He's not telling us what the name of the movie is. But James says it was greenlit, ready to go. The screenplay wasn't ready. And I couldn't do a movie where the screenplay's not good. And we've been really lucky so far because Supergirl's script was so effing good off the bat. The Lanterns came in and the script was so effing good. Clayface, same thing, so effing good. So we have these scripts that we've been really lucky with or wise in our choices or whatever that combination is. So I thought that was really noteworthy.
you feel like that would be a no-brainer.
Uh-huh.
You feel like the script would be ready to go before you greenlight a movie. Like you can say that you want, I don't know, a Batman movie.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a script for the Batman movie, guess what? You don't have a movie. That's silly to me.
No, I think it really depends. So Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie, who have made the last 3-4 Mission Impossible movies together, are notorious for starting their productions well before they have finished the screenplay on those movies. And I was watching an interview with Christopher McQuarrie a week or so ago, and he prefers making the movie this way and so does Tom Cruise, so that as they're going through the production process, if they go, you know what, let's change this, they have and feel the freedom to adjust the approach based on whatever the circumstances were that inspired the new idea. Now, obviously, they have enough plotted out where they're not going, we have 0% of what the ending is going to look like. They have some concepts or some ideas, but they haven't calcified it yet. Now, I think why they can be these rule breakers, though, is that they're also the producers of these movies. So really, they're coming to themselves going, hey, so Tom, Chris, do you feel, yeah, let's go ahead and change that. Obviously, there's a relationship with the studio that matters there, so they don't have complete carte blanche. But point is, not everybody can, and especially not everybody should, be approaching the production process in that fashion.
This is also not the first one they're doing. This is 7.
Exactly right.
8.
Exactly right.
They already know what they want.
Right.
So
there is no doubt. So I totally agree with your posture, with James Gunn's posture. And I think a lot of it comes back to when you ask, well, how on earth does this movie get greenlit and start production if the screenplay isn't done? It's not for good reasons. It's for a strictly speaking, well, we got to make the money. So let's hurry up and get this produced so that people will come see it and we'll make some money off of it. As opposed to what James Gunn is saying, which is we're going to take our time and we're not going to say we have to have this character in a movie or in a show at this time. We're going to actually allow that process to take place more organically, in the sense of when a writer is able to come to us and deliver a script that we look at and go, this is a banger, even if it's about freaking Clayface, who I could give 2 hoots about having his own show or movie.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
It is insane.
It's insane. And in fairness, it also makes sense, because if you can do, and this is where the James Gunness comes in, and he's right. He's like, yeah, we made a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and then we made 2 more, and they were all terrific, and people loved the story that we told. It's about characters that none of us knew about prior to that first movie. So that's where he is perhaps the best fit to be this comic book movie czar for DC and gatekeeper of what are we making? It doesn't matter if it's Batman or if it's Clayface or if it's Green Arrow or Black Canary. It matters, do we have a good story to tell, regardless of which character it is. That is a very different take. And that's credit. He's made it work. So we'll see. Again, read the article for yourselves. Super worthwhile. I don't know if there's an audio version out there. James is a fun guy to listen to. That'd be pretty sweet if there is. But just gets me that much more excited.